Hello and welcome to the inaugural Mammoth Wingspan Creative Studio video. I'm going to be walking you through a drawing that I've just completed and talk a little bit about my process. So going first, I selected a pencil and I'm laying down some basic gestural strokes, just deciding where objects were going to be. I'm just really trying to do this sort of piece of landmass, maybe in a swamp of some kind. I lay down a little bit heavier strokes. A big part of it I was trying to do is block in with guidelines. Guidelines are sort of a thing that I'm trying to use more in my work and sort of figuring out how to use them properly and ways that they can be useful in different pieces. So I try to push back, lay down the first drawing, and then push back that drawing and then draw over and then push back again. That's sort of the full process of what I try to do. So I first begin to block out the basic character, trying to figure out where they're going to stand in space, what they look like, what their basic shapes are, who they are as a character. I sort of immediately threw in a shield, seeing a couple of different poses to try out. I did experiment with quite a few. I didn't find one that I liked right away, but that's the point, to sort of experiment, try new things. So I immediately blocked in this little bun. I thought it kind of looks like an egg, but I thought it was a lot of fun. And I knew that I wanted to do something with a creature of some kind, so I quickly blocked in this little character. Went straight to line art pretty quickly. Some sort of unicorn narwhal character. So now we're laying in some tree forms in the back, masses and planes. Just seeing what works. The floating branches, of course, a staple in my work. Keeping it real loose. This is really all about finding where things fit, designing with line. When I place a line, when I pull a line, a big thing that I'm trying to do is sort of design with that line. So I might make one line now, and it's sort of a note to myself later to return and sort of redesign or see what other options are available. So there I go. I go back into that egg, and I was like, you know what? This is going to be a hair bun. That kind of speaks to what I was just saying, where I don't always know where my pieces are going, but it can be a sort of game in itself of oh, this fits there, that doesn't fit there, or what are the possibilities. I've been playing with the new eye shape, that sort of larger eye look. I think that different eye shapes can express different things, and so with this, I think it's more of like a genuine human look. I might have been thinking of Billy from Adventure Time, where he's like this massive hero character with really human eyes, and I think that speaks to his character. He's a human. So we're going back into that shield a little bit. I don't spend a whole lot of time on the hands. They're more like little gloves right now. But that's something that I want to work on. I think that's going to be a video down the road. We're sticking to this magenta pencil for right now, just to remind myself that it is an underdrawing and to stay loose. So playing with the sword a little bit, seeing how it feels. Classic overalls, of course. Eyebrows, big thick eyebrows. Tried a lip. I didn't like the lip. Sometimes you don't like a lip, Lips can sort of give and take away depending on what they are. Back into that unicorn horn, of course. I was really experimenting. I was trying to give it this a gnarly underlip shelf, but you know, it may not have worked as well as I would have liked. We zoom out, good way to get a overall idea of what your image is looking like. Just back out, flip the canvas, zoom back in. That's the beauty of digital art, is you can sort of get a wide view of your work, and if you get stuck in one view for too long, it can be detrimental to the overall composition. Something I've been thinking about is straight versus curved. So into that far left tree, you can sort of see the one side is the straight, while the opposite side is rippled. And for that one, I was trying to make a really gnarly tree. I wanted to make it feel organic and sort of grotesque. So these bold, curved lines. Something that I've been having a lot of fun with lately is the internal detailing of the trees. These sort of gnarly, curved lines that make up the bark, or the suggestion of the bark. I wanted to make a really low horizon line, and I ended up just suggesting maybe like a lake in the background, or some sort of river or road. You'll see how it comes out a little bit later. And then the far mountain range. One day I'll do a background that doesn't have mountains, but for now, I think it works. So now you get to sort of a point where you can pull out that underdrawing and then add in details. Again, we're pushing back, lowering that opacity of the layer, adding in a new layer, and then going in with a fresh layer of ink. So now, as we can see, I switched to the Belgian pencil, which is available in the Mega Pack, the Kyle Webster brush Mega Pack from Adobe. The Belgian brush is my main inker. There's the Belgian, and then there's the Belgian Smoother. Going in again with these eyes, the very human large eyes, little ear. Let's see what we do with the bun. Make the bun a little bit bigger, add in that hair detail. I was thinking it's like kind of like a tomato, the head's a tomato with the bun hair. I always start on the nose. I was thinking with the eye shape, having bold lines around the eyes could sort of suggest fatigue. The deltoids, I believe. I wanted him to be muscular. Come across as strong. I always like the idea of adding in some sort of bold graphic shape, like an X, to sort of communicate a larger, higher level of storytelling. Simplistically, I feel like there might be a reference in maybe Bone that used this, where something on their shirt speaks to their deeper character. I believe the example was one of the characters in Bone had a star on his chest, and that was sort of a big part of the narrative. I was thinking about making him bare feet, but I went against it. Big old sword. Now, something that I do a lot in my drawings is I like to use smoothing. I don't have the stablest hand. Some might say it's cheating, but in a world of AI, I think we can forgive a smooth brush. So here you can see I sort of, came out of nowhere and threw a skull down. I was thinking that I didn't want it to be just trees and this character, so I shook it up a little bit and I added a skull. a floating skull. Was doing flames, thought it was just a little cliche, so I did this more rounded shape. Trying to see what else worked. Gave it another shot, and this more open shape was the way to go. I don't know what you would call those little side triangles, but I just thought they were interesting. You see, I was texting. Go back in with the leg. I wanted to make sort of like a jagged, irregular shield. So I was experimenting a little later on. Maybe it was a hexagon or something like that, but not a perfectly round. I wonder if if you were to tell a story simply by what a character is carrying, so if he's got a hexagon or an irregular shaped shield, that would speak to his defense mechanisms. Maybe he has either poor defense mechanisms or doesn't have the ability to defend himself as well. Maybe there's an emotional layer there. Little hatch marks to suggest coarse reptilian skin. Immediately hated that hand. I think I go back in there here in a minute. I really like to just jump around the composition. You can sort of go top-down printer style, or you can move around and experiment and have fun. I always enjoy having fun with my work. If it's not fun, then why do it? Again, tried to do this upper lip. I think I decide against it later on. Little shadow triangles. Shield strap. Lumpy nothings. The lumpy rock half-sunk nothings are a really good compositional tool. If you're just sort of trying to build out a little bit of a composition and you don't really know what's going to go somewhere, just throw a little lumpy rock nothing. So I knew I wanted a sort of fourth element here. I wasn't quite sure what it was going to be. I had done a lamp post in a previous drawing, and I knew that I wanted to do something similar, but I was really struggling to nail that perspective while also giving it a little bit of a character. And I think I arrive at something I like just about here. Gets better later. I was like, oh yeah, internal detail. I wasn't quite sure how to approach the undershadow of this birdhouse character. I think maybe the bottom would be better done with color value. Again, with the fun, squiggly internal detail for wood. Earlier today, I was working on a project and I ended up losing the file, but it sort of introduced this sort of magic floating stick idea that I'm sort of doing here. So I guess what my thinking is this character's got little floating stick hands. Maybe it's sort of like a Ghibli character who hops around and doesn't speak but follows the group. Uh, so then I thought, I really was enjoying the overall shape that this group created. So I was taking a swig of soda and moving on to the outer compositional element. So again, I went off script from my original drawing, and I thought, I'm going to add in, a new element. Why would they be out in a swamp? There needs to be a justification. It's filled with crystals. So I decided to draw some crystals around, but for whatever reason, these characters would be sort of nonplussed by these crystals. They're either evil, or they are just not that valuable. If you've got a swamp full of crystals, what is the point of picking one up? So now that I'm looking at it, it's as if the characters are kind of looking away from the crystals. So maybe they're dangerous to observe. And the trickster skull is attempting to bide them into looking, but they refuse. Again, I was just, I design with these lines. When I pull a line down, I'm really thinking about the form it creates, and when you sort of create these ripples and bumps along that line, you can really create some interesting forms. Been having a lot of fun with branches lately. It's just something that is a staple of my work. So kind of going back in, creating these lumpy faces and moss tops and different things. So here we are. The skull is saying crystal, signified by the iconic crystal in the speech bubble. He's attempting to lure our heroes to look at these crystals and perhaps get corrupted. I had a lot of sort of fun with this bit because there were so many overlapping objects that you kind of had to do the math of where things were landing between the skull and the speech bubble and the hero character. It was complex. Going into that detailing on the inner trees. Very, very fun. I wanted to sort of break the script of what I usually do. I usually do really round, sort of bulbous hills, but here I was going with something a little bit more rolling since they were in the distance, and I didn't want them to detract from the high amount of detail in the foreground. Now, in just a few moments, I'm going to be taking a break and coming back with a flipped canvas. And there we go. The canvas is flipped. I had taken a break and I came back and I had started working and I didn't start recording again. So I'm new to this and I'm learning, and that's okay. So on this stage, I am laying down a new layer of ink, and I'm sort of playing with the different ridges that appear on his face. You can sort of see the brow line is a little non-traditional. Throwing in a second ear there. I don't always know when to put a second ear, but I I felt like it worked well here. So here we go. I'm playing with a few different mouth shapes. It can be really surprising the amount of variation that you can create just by redrawing a line a couple of times. So I encourage you, if you're watching this in your own work, you should definitely try to, do like 50 line shapes for mouths. Just open a sheet and do it in one stroke. But you can sort of create a shocking amount of expression through just a single line. So here we go. Again, I'm designing those hair shapes. This round, he's even bulkier, he's even fitter. Trying to decide the appropriate volume for those forearms. I didn't know exactly what the garment he was wearing would be, but I was experimenting with different shapes. I think when it comes down to a character design, realism is less important than design. So if, somebody's looking at your character and they don't fully understand what they're wearing, but it's interesting, I think that's still a win. This time I'm spending a little bit more time on the hands. They're still clunky, but I'm getting there. The classic Corey straw in the mouth. This time I made it sharp. Again, it's an opportunity to do a little non-verbal storytelling of what the character is like. The thing that he casually chews on is also the sort of a jagged object. Struggling a little bit with that hilt. Trying to decide where shadow shapes we're going to go. Detailing on that shield. And here I kept pulling that line and it's just a little too curved. I don't know. I need to practice swords. Adding on the back detail on that sword. Wanted to do a little earring. I was thinking about Darth Maul and how his actor left a stud in his ear, and it sort of became part of his character. So, thinking about how those little things can tell even more of a story. Going back to that shield, I was revisiting how I was thinking about, I wanted a worn, irregular shield, adding in a little bit of those jaggies there to express that. Zooming out to check the composition, and now we're going into our little Narfrog. I'm gonna call it a Narfrog. What do you guys think? Put in the comments below if you vote for Narfrog. Again, going into that lip, I'm trying to see different ways to design it. I wanted it to be chunky, but I didn't want it to be sort of uncomfortably large. Thinking about the planes of the eyelid there, adding teeth in, going in. I often will start with a soft eraser, but the Kyle Webster brushes have a really wonderful 100 point flat eraser that's just great for cleaning up ink work. Going into those gnarly fish feet. Adding a little detail where I can to give it a little extra texture. And again, I had taken a break and we're back. had inked that back of the tail there, working on the skull. As you can see, his character changed a little bit. The eyes changed a little bit. Added a bunch of these little knobby teeth on the back of this fish, as well as a spiky tail. Designing that line, I was thinking when I was drawing that you know, the line pull goes underappreciated, I think. There's something about just a really good line pull, and it usually happens on objects like this, where it's either an organic vine or a tree, and that, you know, just feels good. So now I was thinking, you know, like I wanted to characterize this thing a little bit more. So I tried to make the window a little bit more like an eye, because I'm imagining it's sort of like a trapped soul inside this birdhouse. It's a soul in a birdhouse, not a birdhouse in a soul. I'm really at this stage seeing the group come together like this without even having very much detail in the back is really encouraging. And I remember when I was at this stage, I was definitely excited because things were starting to fall into place. Going and adding those little extra details to the branches, the floating magical branches. Zoomed out to give a better idea of the composition, and we're going to go into these sort of corrupt crystals. I was struggling a little bit in this drawing to figure out how the crystals would make contact with the ground, whether there be a line going along the base of the form, or if there was sort of form coming up onto the crystal itself, like dirt or moss. It's something I'm going to need to think about more as I move forward. I decided that to add a sort of characterization to the skull character, I was going to create a more squiggly line to sort of create a voice, a visual voice for the character. Again, right there where the line just sort of terminates there, sort of struggling to decide whether that crystal sort of coming right out of the ground, and again sort of trying to figure out how that works. But you know, these drawings are our worlds, and we can make them how we want according to our logic. So it's all about inventing a logic and establishing it and sticking with it through the whole drawing to create cohesion. Again, same issue. Now I'm kind of going in and creating a sort of ground form and a horizon line. I really wanted to define the landmass that was directly behind them to create a feeling of depth, like a tight form that the land sort of wraps around, like a protrusion. Going into those tree branches again, making them as gnarly as possible. I think the bottom of trees are so interesting. I think they create a lot of depth if done correctly. It can really add a lot of volume and air to a drawing. It kind of makes me think of Mad Max, the way that a lot of shots were done in Mad Max. The space around the explosion and cars and different things in that movie would create a lot of dimension, and the movie relied on that to create excitement and interest. Again, going into that tight lower line form to give that more space. I was playing with maybe like a floating arrow, something that suggests that the character is in danger, or, you know, continuing despite being in danger, I guess you would say. I was experimenting with this new technique where, you know, throwing down a guide to establish a horizon line. Immediately realized that the horizon went too far and had to Control Z it out because it was crossing a lot of that landmass that is shown there. Did get to use it on the back horizon beyond our lock, and yeah. Again, going into that tricky math, trying to figure out which forms overlap and making sure that the form is cohesive while also interesting. Look at all that quick math. And yep, that nice gnarly tree there. I left this for the last because I knew it was going to be a little tricky, making some adjustments from that earlier drawing. Even in this, you know, second to last, pretty much the last pass on this, I'm still making decisions and choices to redesign and try new things. I don't commit fully because I think that, you know, there's new opportunities, and I know that once I put this down, I'm not going to be able to pick it up again. So I try to take every opportunity to really make choices, and make choices often. The whole process of drawing and painting and creating is sort of a constant state of decision making. Even there, you can see how I crossed that line, and, you know, I didn't go back and redo it. I just committed because I felt like, you know, that was the predominant shape, and that adjustment added, you know, greater amount of tension to the overall image. So I erased the earlier mark and kept it going, and sort of trying to fill in that last little bit. Yeah, adding in some last little details. And that's the drawing. Thank you so much, guys. This has been the first video for Mammoth Wingspan. If you guys want to come check us out, we're on Instagram and we are on Twitter. We'll be posting more work, and I'll be posting more stuff here soon. So appreciate you singing this along. I know the music stopped a while ago, but thank you so much. All right, bye.